Well, good morning. Thank you very much for joining me in this video. I want to talk to you this morning about severance. Severance is the process of creating a new lot or dividing land into more than one parcel. And that can be done for a number of reasons. One is that the two parcels may have existed separately at one point in time, and they may have what we call merged. The same person took ownership of both parcels of land that were abutting up to each other, and because they weren't under plan of subdivision, didn't have separate identification numbers, they merged and became one lot, and you want to now create two lots. Or it can be taking a piece of land that's never really been divided up, and you want to create a lot. That's really important, especially in St. Catharines, where we really don't have any opportunity to develop land and subdivisions, so infill is very important. And where you've got an opportunity on a fairly wide lot to cut the lot into two and create an additional new lot, that's important. A number of people want to do it, builders want to find it, and there's a process you go through. It also can be something called boundary adjustment. And a boundary adjustment doesn't really create a new lot. That's a situation where you've got two existing properties side by side, and you want to take a slice of the land from one property and add it to the other. You still require severance or compliance with the Planning Act, but you're not really creating a new lot. You're gluing one piece from one onto the other. All those involve the process of severance. And I want to talk to you for a few minutes today about this process of severance so we understand it. Each municipality does it a little bit differently. In St. Catharines, for example, I think the same thing with Welland and Niagara Falls, you will go through the Committee of Adjustments. Now, some jurisdictions it's the Land Division Committee. Here it's the Committee of Adjustments. And your first step would be to go to the planning department and sit down and have a very informal consultation with them. The reason for that is you want to find out whether they will support the idea or not. Now, if they don't support it, that doesn't mean you're not going to make application. It just means you're going to have an uphill struggle. So it's really an advantage if they're going to be on site, if they're going to support it. So you explain what you're planning, they ask some questions and so on, and they may say, yeah, we in principle can live with that. Go ahead and make your pre-application formal consultation application form. And so you fill out the form and submit it along with a filing fee. Now, in completing the application form, this is where it gets a little bit convoluted here in St. Catharines. You have to have a completed proper survey. And that means you have to engage a surveyor to do the survey. And they want the survey of the overall parcel of land, where the division is going to be, the retained parcel, the severed parcel, and they want the footprint of what you're planning on building on the severed parcel, together with architectural drawings showing the blueprint, if you like, the height and the dimensions and the information for that construction. That all comes on that complete application form together with your application fee. Then the Committee of Adjustments sends out notification of a public hearing, and that's where the public has the opportunity to come in and object. And I asked the Planning Division about this, and they said almost always somebody's going to object. A neighbor's going to say it's going to block my view, it's going to affect the sunset, one thing or another. And they said we kind of let it go in one ear and out the other. We know that nobody likes change and they're going to object to it, but they got the process. And the process sends a notice out 60 meters from your property that's going to be affected, which is about 200 feet. So 3 or 4 properties on each side and back and forward are going to be notified, and then you're going to get a map, if you like, or a notice on a piece of cardboard that you're going to put on the lot to notify anybody driving by and so on, and they're going to go through that process. Now, the Committee of Adjustments, where you're going through this process, through the severance, have really 3 things they can do. They can approve it, generally with conditions. They can refuse the severance, or they can defer it because they need more information. So they're going to do one of those 3 things, and then that decision will be circulated to any of the people involved, any of the people who complained or filed an objection, and they can file a formal objection if they wish and go through the process. You have essentially 2 years from the time the severance is approved to execute the severance. By that I mean you actually do the severance, and then you have to convey it into two different names so it doesn't merge again. If for whatever reason the process gets derailed, you have an opportunity to appeal it, first of all, to the local Planning Appeal Tribunal or to the Ontario Land Tribunal, used to be the OMB. Now there's another thing that I want to mention to you, and that's something called a minor variance. It may be that in doing the severance, it doesn't comply with the bylaw, and yet it complies with the spirit of how the city sees the development happening. So they may support it, but it may require a minor variance. Let me give you an example. I was involved in a severance a year or so ago in Napanee. My brother was selling his property. He had 7 or 8 acres in the country. And I said to him, you know what? We could divide it down the middle and you could sell off your property. It wouldn't impact the value, and you could sell off an additional lot. So I went to meet with the municipality, and they were very supportive. They're wonderful people to work with. We had an existing survey. We didn't require a new survey at that point in time. We would require one. And so I walked the land, decided where the division should be, and drew it up on the survey and presented it together with my reasons and application and so on. The bylaw stated that the minimum frontage in rural application within the urban boundary was 200 feet. I wanted 85 feet. That's quite a minor variance. In fact, we had to do an official plan amendment, and we had to do a spot zoning change. But we got that through as well. We were able to create the separate lot, sell the property, sell the lot, and everybody's happy. So it can be done, but it may involve a minor variance. And that's when it's going to not comply with the letter of the law of your bylaw, but it's going to fit the spirit of, and in this particular case, where we went to 85 feet instead of 200 feet, since that process, since that severance has been executed, across the street they announced a major development, and so services are going to be brought in right up to the street on the other side of the road, and so they see this particular parcel being developed as well, and therefore being regular lots rather than large lots, and so it fit the spirit of the plan. So one other thing that I want to bring your attention to, it used to be, and this is where it's improved in St. Catharines, it used to be if you were involved in a severance, then the property that is affected had to now comply with the bylaw in its current form. I had a commercial property, I still do, had a commercial property, and I was putting a peaked roof on, which meant that there was going to be a soffit involved. And of course, with commercial property, you could build right up to the lot line. And I didn't want to create what's called an aerial encroachment. So I wanted to see about adding a foot or two of land from a neighboring property, buying it from them and adding it on. Went to City Hall, and I was told, well, that's fine, we can support it, but the property involved is going to have to now comply. It was an old factory, and it was going to be impossible for them to comply to the current standards, and so we couldn't proceed. Now they say, we're not so strict on that. But we got to make sure that if it's a problem, it doesn't make it a worse problem. In other words, if you're doing a boundary adjustment and already you don't have a sufficient side yard and you want to cut a foot or two off, it's going to make it even worse. We want to make sure that it doesn't impact negatively on a situation. So these are some of the things you're going to have to take into consideration. And depending on where the severance is, there's a lot of stakeholders involved. It could be the Escarpment Commission, it could be the Conservation Authority, it could be the Department of Highways. We were involved in one time on Highway 20 coming into Fonthill, and they didn't want to have additional driveways. As you can understand, it's a very busy road. So all these things impact, and all these things have to be taken into consideration. It's not a simple process, but you're going to run across it from time to time, and you as a realtor need to walk your people through and help them with it. I hope this helps a little bit. Thank you very much for joining me in this video. I'll talk to you again next week.